other day, I made a video and I have a lot of comments from that video. And today I'm going to make a cup of coffee and read those comments. And it's simple as that. The question I gave was, what games are you playing? What games get you excited? What games give you the feeling of someone handing you the keys and just letting you run? And so I'm going to read just randomly some comments and we're going to get after it. And I'm going to name off who it is. This is called Happy Jam 92, and they have quite a comment here, a pretty long one. So yeah, it says, I just became a dad for the first time at the end of last year, and as a result, my free time of gaming has shrunk significantly. However, it has made me become much more honest with myself in games I choose to play. I unsubscribed from Plus because I realized it was a waste of money and I wasn't playing anything. And the services, I'd try a few things, but nothing really grabbed me. I had to ask myself, am I having fun playing this? And the answer was no, or it's okay. I just decided to stop playing and uninstall. I realized there were quite a few games I was forcing myself to play because they were popular, and I was trying to convince myself that I'd start having fun eventually. I almost exclusively play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth over the last 6 to 7 months because I love the story, the characters, the combat, the art, the direction, music, and just being in that world. I even enjoyed getting sidetracked playing the minigames, like Queen's Blood. Shout out to Queen's Blood. I would only get to play for an hour or two every other day, but having limited time really made me appreciate all the game has to offer. I finally saw the end credits roll tonight, and I can easily say it's one of my favorite games of all time. I'll probably jump back into Level Up and finish Proto Relic quests, and then move on to Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I guess that was a long way of saying I've learned that games are only really worth finishing if you get genuine joy from playing them, and if it's not a thing to use gamer status, or it's not a thing to use gamer status in reality, no one really cares about that. Powerful. That is a sentiment that I absolutely share, because I think that there is something, and we may not actually get much more than that one comment today, because this is a topic I was thinking about, the topic of achievement hunting. I think that achievement hunting in games has ruined a lot of gaming for a lot of people. Achievement hunting switches from service to service. You have PlayStation, which has its own achievements. You have Steam, which has similar but its own achievements and badges. You have Xbox, which has its own achievements. I think trophies is what you call it over on PlayStation, and achievements is what's on Steam and Xbox or whatever. All of it, whatever it may be, all of it is not a part of the game. It's not actually baked into the game. The game itself doesn't have these achievements as a part of your save file. Those achievements are actually a part of the file that you have on the very thing itself, on the very device itself. So trophies on PlayStation, so on and so forth. And what I found to be really interesting is people will play a game and they will go and they'll say something like, I'm going to 100% this. This is something that I have done before. And some games have percentage markers, like there's Breath of the Wild that does have a technical percentage marker. But even in doing the percentages, you have to find things like travel through every part of the map, find every Korok seed, right? But doing every side quest isn't a part of it. Doing every single shrine is a part of it. Killing all of the different Blythes, the different types of Ganons is a part of it. So there are elements of it that is weird, that is interesting, that you would expect 100% to have every single side quest, but it doesn't. Upgrade every item, that is also not a part of the 100% marker. But if Nintendo was to create an achievement system, which everyone has been asking them to, and I beg Nintendo not to do it, if Nintendo was to have an achievement system, it would be safe to say that Breath of the Wild would have 100% side quests, 100, all of these things for the achievements. Some people adore achievements. They like that accolade. They like feeling like they got a badge or some sort of participation trophy that they can show off to their friends and brag about. Hey, guess what? I actually got every single weapon upgraded to the very max. Something that I've tried multiple times and gotten to a point where I'm like, gaming itself seems monotonous, boring, job-like. This was a conversation I had with the cup that was released yesterday, or today if you're watching this live on twitch.tv/JDXCoffee or youtube.com/thecoffeegamerdad. This idea, this achievement idea, creates homework, I despise the feeling of gaming becoming homework. Oh, I have to get in there and grind. Whereas my experience with some of these games has been very, very organic, very, very natural, because the game itself doesn't tell you where to go, how to play it, but says, hey, here's the keys. And I love the comment that he said, because even though he's playing a game that I felt very much so had a lot of homework-like experiences, the thing itself that was very telling about his comment was he just enjoyed it. He wants to go back and level up the Proto Relics because he saw that that was a thing that he'd missed. He wants to go back and have these experiences. But the thing that I enjoyed about it was the idea that he gets it. He understands that some of these things is like, oh, I must play this, I must upgrade my weapon, I must do that, is just an arbitrary thing. And at the very tail end of what he was saying, he says, I don't even care. I mean, the achievements itself may feel good to you. Me with ADHD, I feel nothing. I am dead inside. I do not feel it. I do not feel any sort of achievement for doing that thing, because ADHD robs you of any dopamine release for achieving completion on a task. Yes, completion brings no joy. It's all about starting a new task. That's why it's tough for me to stay on task, because I know I will never finish. Ooh, a little bit too real here. But let me read some of the comments from people in chat. If you want to watch these live again, you can check the schedule over in the community tab or post tab, whatever they call it. We got Ace of Spades actually coming at me and attacking me and saying, I like achievements. He's saying, JD, you do not know what you're talking about. I like achievements, right? I'm just joking. He's a brother, so he's good. He's one of us. He's one of my bros. But pretty much only due to function as a photo album for myself. I can see that I've played the game and see what I did, but I might even have a screenshot or two that will bring some memories back. All right, so he's cheating it. That's fine. I like it. Potato says, as a data guy, I find aggregate achievements interesting to see when most players stopped playing. Yeah, I guess that's an interesting thing too. That is an interesting thing. It's interesting to see that there's videos coming out about how many times people themselves actually don't even finish games. More people watch games than play games. This is real data that came out. Ace even on stream says guilty. Filthy cheater here. There he is. Hollow Doob says, achievements can be cool if you want to hop back into an old game just to have a new objective, but achievement hunting is a big waste of time otherwise for me. Something that I absolutely feel there. And so let's go into another comment from someone about which games make you feel like they give you the keys. In Richard Assi 5890 says, been getting into retro stuff, and I love how I can just play the game, no online, no multiplayer, just pick it up and have fun. Been playing on a Miu Mini, so it's a grab and go, and I can dive in if I want and put it down when I need to. I don't have to worry about other people. It's just me in my game. And I think the sentiment about getting into gaming in that way and playing games just for you, not having to worry about, again, the achievements, not having to worry about other people getting in there, multiplayer, chasing down, keeping up with other people playing these games, whatever it may be. I think that in and of itself is a really powerful thing. It's why I find myself getting back into retro titles too, because retro titles have an element of detachment, disconnect. And that disconnect, the connection you have isn't internet-based, isn't online, isn't multiplayer, but rather that connection is through personal connections you have with your gamer friends. People who have had fun with that game already, who have decided, hey, I want to experience this through conversation, and you can have that connection there. I don't think that the connection that you have online, which some people would call community, is always organic. Authentic. I think that connection through multiplayer sometimes creates an element of keeping up with the Joneses, where you're like, I just need to be able to get to that skin. I just need to be able to finish it in that way. I just need to be able to get into a spot where I can be high level enough so I can brag or whatever, or get into PvP. That kind of thing, I think, for some people may be enjoyable, but for most, for us dads, I'm going to speak for us dads, ends up becoming a little bit more challenging. And for me, it pushes me me out. Justin Gray 2014 says, I like achievements also. I'm super goal oriented. I'm a super goal oriented person, and I need that. I get a huge dopamine hit from getting an achievement. And that for me, I don't personally. I think that a lot of people, let me rephrase that. I don't think a lot of people, I think that people do. And so obviously that's something is very, very cool. So let's find another comment here. Let's see. We have someone who probably went twice. He says, we put too much stock into what other people think about things, like confirmation bias, because people are so insecure to have their own opinions. Also, when times were simpler, sometimes I look at the 80s Transformer toys that I have and I lament those times. I think reminiscing on times of old is really, really good in some ways. It can also be unrealistic in a lot of other ways, being like, oh man, that time was so great, I wish I could go back to it, but realizing that you were a kid and there were no responsibilities, and now you're a parent or a professional or someone who is involved in school. So it's not necessarily the most realistic to be like, hey, I am someone who, like this is what I need to do. But I will say this, I think there's a lot to learn about where we are currently in gaming, in hobbies and stuff like that. We're more connected. I've said this before in this thing. We're more connected than ever and more lonely than ever. That's a problem. That's a big problem. We have more access to more things and more people and more connections than we ever have had in our whole entire lives. We can talk to people across the world. We can play games with literally anybody who has a gaming system or a TV with Game Pass on it. We have so much, yet we sit here and be like, why do I feel like there's just nothing there? This is a really weird phenomenon, I think, that we're experiencing. And the fact that a lot of us vet gamers, dude, a lot of us 3 decade gamers are going, you know what? The new stuff is starting to push me out, and I just want to play, for the 4th time ever, Pokemon on a Game Boy cartridge. Like, why? Why am I feeling pushed into that experience? And it's really something that I think is an interesting thing. I think a point over here by Mara Sovas, oh good lord, Marasovlevchik. Okay, we tried. This is during a live. He says, as a busy dad of 4, I find myself watching other people play games I know I won't have time to commit to. If I really enjoy the gameplay, I may spring for the game myself to play through, but oftentimes find myself just completing the games vicariously through other people. The catalog is so big these days that it's hard to devote time to play every single game that looks good. Shout out to my YouTube folks who are watching this live too. I see you, more Beta Prince. So that is a really, really Oldrinsov would like to have a word with you. So at any rate, this is a sentiment that I really do appreciate. The self-awareness, just knowing I don't have time to play, so I'd rather do the couch thing that we did back in the 90s, the 80s and 90s. We go over to a buddy's house, we sit there, watch them play, and just have a good time. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's the reason why Twitch is successful in its own right, is we have this way to interact with the community in a game without necessarily having to do the homework ourselves. And that there's a weird thing. There's the people who never play video games and just watch them. I don't even think that's a problem. I actually don't think it's a problem. I think where the problem comes in is when we start to just collect digital things with no intention of actually playing them. And I really think that this is a new thing that I'm realizing is popular. I have a buddy, a really close friend of mine, who he says he has no time to play video games. So instead, he watches them like TV shows or movies and enjoys the games themselves for what they are based on that experience, and connects with the community, learns the memes, and is a part of the conversation that way. And I think that's a very, very realistic thing. Unfortunately, we live in a time where it's unbelievably expensive to be alive, and so people are really having to double and triple down and sacrifice so many parts of their lives that they held dear, some of their hobbies, some of their free time, whether they're becoming parents, they're working professionals, just trying to make ends meet, and they're not able to experience these games for themselves, but they still want to be a part of the community. I think that is a beautiful thing that I'm learning exists, and that's really, really cool. And if you want to be a part of the coffee community, the Brew Crew, it's very simple. You just watch these videos and participate in the chats. It's as easy as that. You're a part of it. There's no money. If you want to sub, you support my family, but that's your own thing. Let's go to another comment here. All right, let's see. I think the constraints of older games were more of a blessing, says PMC 259. Games could only do so much back in the day, so they made it count. Now games can basically do anything and have as many mini games as they want. This is contrary to our first comment, but that usually distracts from the main point of the game. I think that's why conversations on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth died so quickly, because people lost interest by the second or third area of random quests and minigames. Well, I didn't have that experience the first time. I'm certainly having that experience the second time. There's so much jam-packed into games that the achievement hunting actually is what is the game itself. The story itself could be 15, 20 hours, very reasonable length for a game's story, but people are getting lost in the mini games. They're getting lost in a lot of these additional, somewhat unimportant side quests and mini games. And this is the thing, right? The achievement, playing the game for the achievement, playing the game to get it done, playing the game and not actually finishing the game, or not actually getting anywhere near the game's real story, just because there is so much extra stuff you can't even really get past it. This is such an interesting concept, and I think is really what we're starting to experience more and more is this fatigue in games, because the story itself, I'm not taking shots at 7 Rebirth, because I think 7 Rebirth has a good story, but the story itself is lacking so much that they have pumped it with as much stuff as possible, or created these achievements, or worse yet, have none of it, but they've created this achievement system that kind of takes away the game. So imagine, let me give an example. Imagine a game like, let's use Elden Ring, for instance. Elden Ring, right? Which is a very popular game, a good enough game just by itself. But imagine if the game itself had achievements like play the whole game without a weapon, play the whole game with just this. And now the game itself, I guess that's still playing the game in a certain route, but Elden Ring doesn't do that. Someone says, yes, which is great. But imagine if a game here, let's do this. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, right? Which has no achievements. Let's say the game, it says progress the whole game without, using rupees, and you're just like, the game changes. You can't get some of the weapons, you can't play it, or play the whole game without upgrading any weapons, right? Now, some people may appreciate that challenge, but let's say that's the achievement. This is the thing, achievements are starting to exist in ways that completely transform the game itself. It's not play the whole game to the end. Imagine if achievements, that they have these, complete the game. Imagine if that was, of all the achievements that existed, were stuff like just complete the game, or do this one side quest story that is an additional. That's the thing with Elden Ring that's so spectacular. There's so many types of things in the game that are hidden that you can play and finish the game and still have full-blown storylines that you didn't even explore, which is so spectacular in and of itself. But I do agree with the sentiment that games are being pumped full of superfluous things that have nothing to do with the game itself, just to create content around it and to pump it to say, hey, look how many hours you can play this game, when in reality, you're not actually playing the game. You're just doing checklists and fetch quests. Justin Gray says, I think Nintendo's Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom do the best version of this, where you can beat the story, and then if you want 100% the game, it loads you right back right before you fight the boss, and you can do all the side stuff if you want. But never do you feel like you have to do the side stuff to get through the story. Very true. Mara says, I feel like the trend with AAA titles these days, they use mini games as filler for the lack of story content. Games are $60 to $70, so that's hard to justify spending, but for a 40-hour game. So they artificially extend that and make the title worth the money. They cram it full of side quests and mini games. The most tedious part of Elden Ring Platinum was getting the legendary spells and weapons, but that was still fun, says Trucker Dan. No, so I want to say this about games back in the day. Games back in the day were extended by their difficulty. That was it. Play a game like the TMNT, which you actually couldn't fully beat, or Lion King game. These games were so unbelievably difficult that you had to get good before you got the credits, right? Imagine a game that you can finish in 2 hours, except it takes you 2 months because you have to master it. This is something that is missed. This is something I like about Elden Ring. This is something that I like about some of these games. Is the Dark Souls games are a good example of that, says Hollow Dube, a huge Souls fan. This is the thing. I like the idea that a game itself is long because it takes a while to master it. You actually have to get good at it. You actually have to learn how to play it. And that is something that I think is powerful, and we don't actually get that as much anymore. Games are so easy. They have to have a low barrier of entry because they have to sell 1 million copies. They can't afford to do what Elden Ring did, which is say, hey, my game too hard for you? Too bad, dude. Too bad. Don't play me. Refund it if you're on Steam, or if you don't want to play it, just don't play it. Don't buy it. It's too tough. This is the thing that I miss, and I'm excited to see more games do this. Indie titles are doing this more and more. I was recently trying out the Blasphemous series. Not an easy game. Even games like Shovel Knight do stuff like this, where it's just challenging, and you're like, I have to actually get good. It's not easy. It's because the budgets are not the same. The AAA industry has pretty much ruined itself because their budgets are so high. They have to have an ROI. They're answering to investors. They've spent millions and millions of dollars. And if their game is too hard, like the game coming out on Friday, Monster Hunter, if it's too hard, people aren't going to play it. They need to get more. They need more people to play it. So the game itself may be too easy. And so that's something that I think is interesting. Let's go to another comment here. This says, let's see. This hit me like a train. As someone who has the loyalty for PlayStation, but at the same time grew up playing Halo on Xbox, but loved Pokemon on my GBA SP, and now all his friends are on PC, I've been through it all gaming-wise. To the point where now all I got to show for it is decision fatigue and a monstrosity of back catalog spread throughout PlayStation 5, Series X, and Steam. And all my inner child telling me to do is just buy a Switch and get all of the Mario and Zelda games and just disappear. Oh, man, I think we're going to land the plane with that idea. This idea that we have so many options out there. There's so much decision fatigue. There's so many things coming out. There's so many that just keep penetrating through the brain and kind of taking away what gaming originally was. Gaming for me was a time where I would go through school, couldn't wait to get home or for the bell to ring so I could run across the street to my buddy's house and we could all pile into his room and eat chips, drink pop, and play through games. Some of us on Game Boys, others of us on Game Cubes. This was looking forward to finishing the so-called responsibilities of life at a young age and just run to the game to feel not escape, but a beautiful entry into a Narnia, right? Some people look at gaming like an escape, like Harry Potter, right? Sitting underneath being locked underneath the staircase, and they just can't wait to escape that life. I look at video games like Narnia, where it's not an escape, but an adventure, where life itself doesn't have to progress with me not a part of it, but life itself is on hold for a brief few moments while am experiencing something special. I don't think video games themselves, for me, are something that I want to run away from my life from. I don't. I want my life to pause for a few brief moments, which it can with the help of Bluey and bedtimes, and then I can proceed to continue. I don't want to sit there like that person in those music videos where they're still and everything around them is moving really fast. Video games have never been an escape for me. They've been a portal to another world to experience stories and adventures and magnificent things. I'm a fantasy gamer, so I like a lot of fantasy games. So a lot of it's really spectacular and stupendous rather than sci-fi futuristic. And so gaming has always been that. I couldn't run to these faster because I wanted to be in these worlds and understand and figure this out. I wanted to play through Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics Advance because I love tactical games, Advanced Wars, and then Pokemon, and get into Golden Sun. And all these games are so powerful back in the day, and I couldn't wait to play them. But never did I feel like, oh, I just got to get through this. Games these days feel that way. They feel like they're calling you to do things. People talk about Monster Hunter now. I've been talking a lot about Monster Hunter recently because it's a hot topic. The best I can do to hop into trends, I haven't even taken a sip of coffee yet. The best I can do to hop onto trends is talk about the game that's coming out because I'm probably not going to play it. And the thing about Monster Hunter is people always say you got to play about 100 hours before you get to start playing the game. And I think that's a little bit too much for me. Some people, it's the only game they play, but I'd rather play a game that is a start to finish and you just kind of go. Checklists and having a second job, a second life, kind of like Dwight in The Office, it's just not for me. I'm not looking for my game to feel like it's a different life, a life that I'd rather have. I'm looking for my game to be a story, to be a Lord of the Rings tale where I'm experiencing something spectacular. I'm being transported into something that is just magnificent. I'm not looking for it to be a somewhat futuristic sci-fi sidestep of my life. I don't want that. I want something magical and crazy. And so games, I feel like running to games, this sentiment, I just want to get all the Zelda and Mario games and disappear, is running back to a time where gaming was something you look forward to. Gaming is something where you thought about and you're like, oh, I just can't wait to find out what's next. I don't know what's next. But gaming now is turned into, oh, I just can't wait to get the next item. Oh, I need to grind to get the big thing, right? And that's always been the case, not always been the case, that has been the case with games, but that kind of gaming was something you saw more with MMOs. Sure, there were times of that in Final Fantasy, but even that itself wasn't a thing. The whole idea of gaming for me was always to experience story, to share experiences with others, and I've mentioned this the past few cups, and I feel like a broken record, but I don't care. Gaming has been that, and I am looking for a gaming system, or not system, a gaming experience where they hand you the keys and they say, here, play me. And then from there, go talk about it with your friends. And they don't hand you a book and say, hey, get through this. Because that itself is just more work. And I already do enough as a business owner and as a family man. So I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. If you want to watch these live, like I'm doing right now, twitch.tv/JDXCoffee. Okay, you'll see it live. Easy peasy. If not, you can watch the videos as I post them. I don't always do a cup live, as you've been noticing. And we've been having fun with it. All right. Check the schedules in the post tab. I'll see you guys around. Play more and be kind.